I think there were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was.
He wasn't there. That's what shocked royal fans when Princess Anne finally opened up about why her father, Prince Philip, didn't live full-time with Queen Elizabeth II during their later years. For decades, the Queen and Prince Philip were seen as the ultimate royal partnership, stoic, united, enduring. So why, behind the palace walls, did they choose to live apart? What Anne reveals now changes everything we thought we knew. This isn't a scandal. It's a story of love, distance, and fierce independence. Anne didn't just speak from memory. She spoke with reverence, clarity, and maybe even a touch of pain. For the first time, we're getting a glimpse into what truly mattered to Prince Philip, what kind of man he was, and how even a royal marriage bends to personality and purpose. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear may change how you see the monarchy forever. To understand why Prince Philip didn't live full-time with Queen Elizabeth II, you first need to understand the foundation of their marriage. They were married in 1947, a union forged just after World War II, when the British Empire was still redefining itself and the monarchy was under pressure to modernize. Elizabeth was a young woman destined to become queen. Philip, a naval officer with a restless spirit, was thrust into a life of ceremonial duty. Traditionally, royal couples were expected to live in the same palaces, especially the reigning monarch and their consort. Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Sandringham, these were the homes the world associated with the Queen. And yes, for much of their life together, the Queen and Prince Philip shared residences. But as they aged, something shifted. Philip began spending most of his time at Wood Farm, a quiet retreat on the Sandringham estate. Meanwhile, the Queen continued to carry out her duties from Windsor or Buckingham Palace. This arrangement, though unconventional by public standards, wasn't a sudden break. It evolved quietly, behind the scenes. Their marriage, by all accounts, remained strong. But Philip's decision to live separately sparked questions for years, questions that remained largely unanswered. Until now, because Princess Anne has stepped forward with insight only a daughter could offer. In a rare moment of candor, Princess Anne finally addressed what many royal watchers had quietly speculated for years. In an interview following Prince Philip's death, she said something simple but powerful. He didn't want to be fussed over. He needed to do things his way. That's it. No scandal, no secret falling out. Just a glimpse into a man who cherished his independence, and a marriage that made room for it. Anne explained that Philip's retreat to Wood Farm wasn't a sign of marital distance, but a deeply personal choice rooted in his character. He was always very practical, she noted. He saw no reason to be in the spotlight if he didn't have to be. He had stepped back from public life in 2017, and in the years that followed, chose the serenity of Norfolk over the formality of royal palaces. But there was more in Anne's tone than just explanation. There was admiration. She spoke of how he relished waking up early, cooking for himself, even tinkering with the heating system when it broke down. It was, as she put it, his version of freedom. And the Queen, she implied, understood this deeply. It's rare to hear royals speak so openly about personal matters. Anne's words pulled back the curtain on not just their living situation, but on the very nature of their partnership. Philip didn't vanish from the Queen's life. He simply lived it on his own terms, and she respected that. This wasn't distance, it was dignity. Prince Philip wasn't born to be a British prince. He was born into Greek and Danish royalty, but found his identity in the British Royal Navy. The sea, the discipline, the solitude, these shaped him. And even after marrying Elizabeth and becoming the Queen's consort, he never stopped being a naval officer at heart. Anne alluded to this when she described her father's love of structure and self-reliance. In the Navy, Philip wasn't waited on. He served, commanded, and earned respect. That mentality stayed with him. At Wood Farm, he cooked his own meals, arranged his own schedule, and lived like a retired sailor enjoying the quiet after a storm. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was necessity. In Buckingham Palace, life revolved around ceremony, tradition, and attention. At Wood Farm, Philip could return to his roots. He could wear what he liked, tend the garden, read in peace. It was, by all accounts, the only place where he truly relaxed. Anne's revelation confirms that this retreat wasn't about escaping the Queen. It was about preserving himself. In a sense, Wood Farm became his final ship, and he its only captain. And just as a seasoned sailor knows when to leave the deck, Philip knew when it was time to quietly fade from the public eye, without fanfare or fuss. That's the man Anne remembered. Not distant, but disciplined. Not cold, but independent. Being royal isn't just a title, it's a full-time job. And for Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, that job came with strict roles and endless obligations. Every appearance, every speech, every handshake was part of the performance of monarchy. And they performed it together for over 70 years. But behind the scenes, duty demanded sacrifices. The Queen's life was tied to her role as monarch. Her time was dictated by schedules, ceremonies, and state responsibilities. Prince Philip, though deeply loyal, was not one to enjoy being in the shadows. As consort, he was always a step behind, never in charge. Anne hinted that this imbalance wasn't always easy for him. He gave up a career, a life he loved, she said. And yet, he never complained. Instead, he found his own space, first in hobbies like carriage driving and painting, and later in his retreat to Wood Farm. By 2017, Philip had officially retired from public life. That's when the separate living arrangement truly began. It wasn't a break in their marriage, it was a compromise. The Queen continued her public duties. Philip enjoyed the quiet retirement he had earned. In many ways, their separate residences were simply extensions of their roles. She ruled, he stepped aside, not out of resentment, but out of mutual respect. As Anne made clear, it was an arrangement that worked for them. Of all the Queen and Prince Philip's children, Princess Anne was perhaps the closest to her father in spirit. Known for her no-nonsense attitude and strong work ethic, Anne always admired Philip's independence and resilience. That made her perspective particularly powerful. While others might have misunderstood his decision to live apart, Anne didn't. She saw it as a reflection of who he was, not a rejection of family, but a deliberate embrace of simplicity. She described it not as him leaving the Queen, but as choosing to live in a way that made sense for him. Other members of the royal family have touched on the arrangement in softer terms. Prince Charles acknowledged his father's desire for privacy. Prince Harry, in interviews, noted Philip's brilliant, unapologetic sense of self. But Anne was the first to put it plainly, stripping away the mystery. He needed to be in his own rhythm, she said. That rhythm didn't clash with the Queen's. It simply ran beside it. And in their own quiet way, the royal couple made it work. It wasn't traditional, but then again, neither was Prince Philip. When Princess Anne's comments made headlines, the media wasted no time jumping on the story. Anne breaks her silence, one headline read. Princess Anne in tears over father's solitude, another claimed. YouTube videos with dramatic titles exploded, many suggesting scandal where there was none. But beneath the clickbait, something more meaningful happened. Viewers and readers began to reassess what they thought they knew about the royal couple. Far from suggesting a fractured relationship, Anne's words painted a portrait of mutual understanding and quiet respect. Royal watchers praised her honesty. Fans commented online about how refreshing it was to hear a royal speak with genuine emotion and clarity. It makes so much sense now, one commenter wrote. Philip wasn't leaving the Queen, he was just being himself. Some in the media used the revelation to highlight a more modern, human side of the monarchy. No fairy tale perfection, just a real couple with different needs and a deep bond. Anne's insight reminded the public that love doesn't always look like living under the same roof. Sometimes it looks like freedom given and space respected. And for the Queen and Philip, that was enough. Princess Anne's revelation doesn't just explain where Prince Philip lived, it reshapes how we understand royal marriage, especially one as long-lasting as her parents. It challenges the idea that closeness must always mean constant togetherness. Instead, it shows that love can thrive even in distance, especially when rooted in deep respect. For decades, the Queen and Prince Philip modeled duty and stability. But what Anne revealed adds a new layer: individuality. In a world where public life often swallows private identity, Philip found a way to keep his. And the Queen, in perhaps the greatest act of partnership, let him. This matters because it humanizes them. Behind the jewels, titles, and palaces were two people navigating life, compromise, and aging just like anyone else. Their ability to adapt, to let each other be, might be the most royal thing of all. Anne didn't offer gossip. She offered clarity. And in doing so, she reminded us that even in the most visible marriage on earth, space can be a form of love. Not every story needs drama. Sometimes the truth is more powerful. And now we see it, not as a mystery solved, but as a legacy understood. So now we know. Prince Philip didn't live full time with the Queen, not because of conflict, but because of character. Princess Anne's words gave us the answer we didn't know we needed. He was a man who valued purpose, order, and quiet freedom. And in the twilight of his life, he found peace not beside the throne, but beside the trees, the fields, and the simple routine of Wood Farm. Their marriage wasn't broken, it was evolved. Two people, one bound to duty, the other to independence, finding a rhythm that worked for them. It's not the fairy tale image we're used to, but maybe that's the point. This was real, and in its own way, even more beautiful. Anne's honest reflection doesn't just honor her father, it reveals the quiet strength of both her parents. The Queen respected Philip's space. Philip never stopped respecting the Queen's role, and through it all, they remained connected, not by proximity, but by profound mutual respect. So the next time someone asks, "Why didn't Prince Philip live with the Queen?" you'll know the answer. Because he didn't need to be next to her, to always stand by her.